Hello and welcome back to an episode of the CTO Show with Mehmet. Today, I'm very pleased. Joining me, Will Spengler. He's founder and principal of Frederick Fox, a company which specializes in hiring and recruiting for financial roles, for accounting roles, and technology roles also as well. We're gonna discuss today a lot of topics with Will, but mainly as you can imagine, we're gonna focus on this part of the business. Of course, as usual, I don't like to steal much of my guest time. This is why, Will, thank you again for joining me here today. Give us a little bit more of your, background, your story, and what brought you to start, the company, and then we're gonna take it from there.
Okay, very good. Hey, Mehmet, thanks for having me on the show. And I'm excited to be on the CTO show and to have an audience in Dubai. And it's nice to meet you in person. Um, my name's Will Spengler. I started Frederick Fox. We're a staffing company. We have, you know, it was started in 2019. We are now up to about 61 recruiters, and we have 5 individuals in the back office. So in 6 years, we've become about a 70-person business. It was all organically built. We took no venture capital, no private equity funding. We've really been building it as we go. Um, I'm very proud of that. And essentially, we're a professional services company. We staff predominantly accounting and finance, technology, and sales roles. And our top three verticals are, our top three, industries that we service are mainly technology, SaaS type companies. We do a lot as well in manufacturing and construction, but that's just a high level on me.
Great. And thank you again, Will, for being here with me today. Like as a founder, I have to ask you this question. There must be, a moment where you were noticing what's happening in the market, and then you saw something probably broken or maybe incomplete that pushed you to take this decision to build what you have built today. Well, so if you can give us like maybe on a high level, what you have seen missing, and what's the opportunity that you said like, okay, it's worth to go and build a company around it, especially you decided to bootstrap, doesn't you don't you decide not to take funding also as well, and it's something hard to do actually.
Yeah. Um, so I worked in staffing for 8 years before I started my company. I worked for 5.5 years for a publicly traded staffing company called Adecco Group in the United States. And then for 3 years, worked at a company called Tima Solutions Group. So I had worked at two other agencies for about 8 or 9 years before I started Frederick Fox. I don't think that I was some visionary genius or Wunderchild when I started the company at age 31. I think a lot of what Frederick Fox was to your point. It was an opportunity to create a business model that was, I think, more economically fair for partners. So, without getting too granular, I really loved the business Tima, the second staffing company I worked with. I think the gentleman was a visionary with a great idea. He basically took the real estate brokerage model and applied it to staffing agencies, and would pay out double, if not triple, to the recruiters for what they would bill. The issue with that, I became a partner in that company, and I kept on trying to speak up on how we could make it a better partnership offer for the other partners involved. And so, me starting this company was filling a gap of, okay, there isn't this opportunity for recruiters. There isn't a business model that's with a real fair, genuine partnership structure. Can I create and fill that gap? And I just seized the opportunity and did it, and have been doing it 6 years. So you're right. There was that. It wasn't like I'm not like Elon Musk with this grandiose idea. I would say that I'm following suit of ideas in the past and filling a gap, to really empower other people more within a framework. So
Yeah, and thank you for bringing this up, Will. And I tell people like you don't have, people they have this misconception sometimes that yeah, we need to have this idea that no one else before have done, or we need to be superhumans to do this. And I tell them, you just need to find your, your purpose and call, and then try to go and build it out. And here you go, like you started, and now it's 8 years, I think it's coming to 8 years, right? And here you go, 8 or 7 years probably, right?
Yeah,
um
that I've been doing Frederick Fox. Yep.
yeah,
So
yeah. So now about scaling, and especially in a business like yours, Will, um, you mentioned at the introduction that you're growing, about to cross $10 million. So to do something like this, I believe, you know, you have to do a lot of, work on being agile, delivering results instead of wasting time. And this is a mistake I see other founders and entrepreneurs in different verticals they do. They waste time on building heavy infrastructure and so on. So for you, what really helped in reaching this? Like, was it a mix of culture plus maybe the talent that you get with you down the road? What you can share about this scaling story that you had?
yeah, I think okay, so I think one of the things when I started my business in 2019 was I had been my first 2 years in business, it was just me. So from 2019 to 2021, I was by myself, and that created a period of time where I really thought a lot about what I wanted to do. Did I want to just be this solopreneur? And if I was going to build something, how would I do it and how would I go about it? So I think the reason why it grew so fast was in 2021 when I started to actually add people, and people came into the company. I had a crystal clear vision from that time being by myself of where I would go in the next 5 years and how we would accomplish it. Um, so I always knew like we would go from I had like a 5 year plan. We'd go from 0 to 1 million, then we go to 2 million, then we go to 4 million, then we go to 8 million, then we go to 15, then we go to 20. And so I'm an analytical person by nature. I had spent time doing a 5 year plan saying, this is how many people we would have to have. This is how our back office would have to be structured. Here's the time if we had this amount of gross profit, um, I would know I could invest into back office infrastructure and services, to support the revenue that we would have to process. So I think part of the secret to the success being so fast was I just had a clear plan and a clear offer and clear vision, so that when people started to join the business, they knew what we were trying to do, where we were going, and why. And then I think the other side of why it was able to be done without any investment is just the nature of our industry. We don't have like a huge barrier to entry. When you're
Hmm.
developing a software to product, or if you're in a heavy asset industry, let's say trucking or logistics, or you know you have to actually have these $1 million physical assets that you have to purchase or get funding to even play in the game. Where or in software, oftentimes you have to develop and pay for building out a product before you take it to market, and that's why VC will get involved, because you have to pay those engineers. What was unique about professional services and staffing was, um, it's a very low barrier to entry. You basically just have to have customers and you have to start churning revenue. And we were able to grow organically without a heavy barrier like an asset or software development, if that makes sense. So,
Absolutely, absolutely. Well, maybe I was sharing with you before we start the recording. So, I hosted a lot of different leaders and entrepreneurs with me here on the show. We discussed talent and hiring.
okay.
We focus more on the technical side, but there is a fact, like even if you are a startup at some stage, especially maybe when the time comes and you need to have maybe your first accountant, or maybe even you have the full-fledged CFO. So I want to touch on this part, because I think we didn't discuss it on the show, although like it's a CTO, but I had CFOs with me also as well, but we never focused on what a good hire means when it comes to these first positions, you know, whether accountants, analysts, um, like if I want to put myself in the place of a maybe full-time CFO or a fractional CFO, what I would be looking for when we talk about finance talent.
Yeah, that's a great question. Um, So I think what a lot of startups do is that they try to find a bookkeeping firm that can just manage their QuickBooks. And there's a lot of these bookkeeping firms that can do basic AP, AR, and you could get them for like $600 a month. That's how I initially started with accounting. But I think where that starts to break down, I always say once you're like 3 million in sales, and you start to have some complexity, you do need that first accountant. And what I did was I hired somebody that came from about a $15 million business that was really good in QuickBooks. But so I went from a bookkeeper to more of like an accounting manager from a small company. And what you get with that is you get somebody who can actually build a balance sheet, actually really build a P&L and statement of cash flows. But they're usually really hands-on accountant. They can set up your chart of accounts and they can set you up in a way to now analytically work on your business versus like a bookkeeper is just making sure you're collecting the money and paying your vendors. You're not getting much like analytical chops or real like business partnership or decision making out of that individual. Um, I think it depends on how fast you're going to grow and your stage of development of your company. One of the mistakes I made was I underhired accounting for how fast I intended to grow. Um, if I were to redo it, I would have spent more on a really heavy controller or CFO that had really hands-on accounting experience in a startup environment. That person's hard to find because a lot of CFOs are very analytical. They're great business partner strategists. They're great presenters of the business, but when it comes to getting a CFO to actually build the chart of accounts and actually do the accounting, that's a rare bird to find. So we talk to a lot of companies. We work with a lot of VCs and private equity groups with hiring in that 0 to 20 million annual revenue range for accounting. So it's a broad answer to your question, but it's a lot of variables in there that's contingent upon the complexity and stage of development of the startup.
That makes a lot of sense, actually. What I wonder now about, well, like if we were talking, because you do this for tech roles also as well. Now, when we talk about hiring tech talents, usually there are like, I would say the usual suspect location where we can find these guys, probably, we can find their profiles easily. When it comes to finance specifically, where, in your opinion, the top guys, top notch guys would be coming from usually?
Yeah. So when it comes to accounting, I think I think you always want to find people that are coming from your industry that understand your business model. And I think getting someone from your industry, like a competitor, goes a long way for accounting and finance. And then also, you have to pull somebody from a similar sized company. I see this mistake a lot where, let's say, a $15 million revenue business hires a CFO from a $500 million company. um, that CFO from a $500 million company can't really, I hate to say it, but really can't add any value to a $15 million business. It's too hands on, it's too in the weeds, it's too operational. I'm not saying there's not outliers to it, but a lot of like big company people, they become too ivory tower, too management, too many departments underneath of them bubbling the actual work up. So, if I were to give any advice, I would say find accounting and finance talent that are in your industry, that are in a similar sized company. And that's what's important, that you culturally get along with them as well, would be the cherry on top. that's, I think, where a lot of people make mistakes with that hire is that they just get somebody that talks the talk but can't walk the walk.
Right. Now, I want to ask you, Will, about not as technology itself, but on a high level, there is a lot of changes happening to all sectors, right? Like every single job company is being disrupted currently with cutting edge technologies, whether it's AI, automation. When it comes to what you do, recruiting. So, and I'm asking this question a lot nowadays to different people, like whether it's GTM, whether it's like, you know, recruiting and other like I would call supporting roles for the business. How we make sure that we don't turn this into a cold robotic way of dealing with people, because reality is people are doesn't even techie people, including myself. Now I'm not doing coding anymore. Like I mean, I'm not a technical guy anymore, but still, I understand the technology, and I would prefer a human touch always, especially if it's coming for someone who talks to me about, let's say, an advisory role or maybe a full time role. Still, I have the preference to feel like I'm not thrown into an automated process and getting these things. I prefer someone to give me a shout, for example. What are you seeing, this technology is affecting that part, and how we can keep it as much as possible human, but at the same time leveraging the technology to be more agile, more fast, and make everyone happy, I would say.
Yeah, that's a great question. Um, Developers and AI engineers, and I would even say private equity and venture capital, they're trying to disrupt the staffing industry, and they have been trying to do that for the last, I would say, 7 years. And they've done a lot of great things with AI. A lot of the sourcing of candidates and the ability to filter people through a database to pick the best fit candidate in an unbiased fashion, allegedly unbiased. A lot of that sourcing and data work, and people analytics is being very well handled by AI. I think a lot of people want to have that one button where you say, okay, I press a button and AI has my new hire starting in the desk on this date. But when in reality, when you go through that process, there's just you would be surprised how technical it is to do staffing. It sounds like a simple problem, but when you actually get down to it, like you have to source and find, you have to reach out to them, and then you have to pique their interest, and then you've got to get them to come meet everybody for a cultural perspective. Then there's actually closing and making sure that the person is actually willing to make a career shift. Can AI do that? Like, yes, there are AI. AI is now doing interviews. AI can now call. Um, in the future, yes, AI could theoretically build that end to end button that you press a button and your new hire starts. But I think what's happening is that a lot of it's not really working in actual practice, where people don't actually respond to AI reaching out. People don't want to interview with an AI bot. Um, People want to have an experience where it's interpersonal and emotional. And maybe I'm trying to justify my job, but like, us being a broker still creates this human interaction that actually gets results. Now, if AI can learn to do that and actually stick somebody in a seat and it's effective, I understand companies not using people like us, but in reality and seeing it play out, I think AI is only further justifying our jobs, and we're seeing an increase in demand for our services.
Maybe I'm not sure if this would apply to your space, Will, but I'm hearing more about. So, for example, in SaaS now they are talking about vertical SaaS, or like specialization in one specific thing. I give a simple example. So, especially now, everyone can go to these vibe coding tools and they can build anything. So, people are talking about probably the way the market is shifting. By the way, and this is opinion not from me, from a lot of people, although like they said, yeah, SaaS is done, long live AI, but it's not true because still you need someone to manage. And anyway, we can discuss this later in other episodes. But the idea here, as a business owner, do you see, you becoming actually important? Because if you specialize, and I know you have like very few areas you focus on as a company, and you have the leverage, which we call it in the startup world also the moat, first of understanding the market that you serve very well, plus you have all these connections, relations, whether with companies that they are hiring and the talent pool. And this becomes, instead of something commoditized, it's something which is actually differentiating in the marketplace. Are you seeing, and this might apply also to any professional service company, are you seeing the market going or shifting towards this direction?
Yeah, I think real relationships is sort of the moat at times. You may be able to develop an end-to-end AI tool, but is, Wells Fargo going to trust you to deliver the service? So I do think sometimes like having those relationships and having those contracts and the trust that the customer feels that basically pays our bills, that's the moat for a lot of these like AI generated companies that are trying to connect six different AI tools to create that one button that gets the person that start. Um, so, yes, I think there's a shift in general for real relationships on both sides. People looking for new jobs are going to respond better and are going to actually shift jobs if a real human being is talking to them. They're tired of AI and AI call screens. It's not working. And it's the same thing with the end customer. The end customer wants to have a human to interact with, that they can a single neck to squeeze, where they can make sure that the service is actually delivered. Um, I know that probably would frustrate an AI engineer, but that's just the reality that we're seeing. Is like it's real relationships that I think is the moat. To your point.
Right. You were telling me, well, before we start the recording, about the internal tool that you have built that helps in, without going into the technicalities. I know, like, it's kind of a tool that you are proud that you have developed. It's called Ruby AI. So tell me more about it. Like, what's the use case and what like drove the decision to have it built?
Yeah, thanks for asking. Yeah, it's Ruby.ai is what we call it. My cat was named Ruby. She actually passed away on the launch date, and I didn't have a name for the product, so I just went with Ruby, my cat's name. But essentially, what it is, we call it like a recruitment operations hub, but essentially, it's a payroll software and an analytical tool for specifically for the staffing industry. It what it does is it gives real time sales reporting and leaderboard for all of the reps in our company, but then it also APIs with our payroll software and our recruiting software to grab placement data. And I think what it's doing more so is it's also connecting with, we use QuickBooks Online to start to automate accounting. So
Mm-hmm.
essentially, it becomes an accounting automation tool. It's a single location to pull in all of our data, display it to everyone on our team, and to help automate the accounting entries that are occurring within our business. Essentially allows us to process more revenue with fewer headcount in the back office. And then I think where it's gone as well is we've built a Clay database for sales leads. And we now have a lead gen system that we've developed into Ruby, which empowers our salespeople with real-time AI generated leads and contact information to try to make our salespeople, you know, less research, more on the phone with hot leads. So it sort of serves as, we call it a recruitment operations hub, but it's an accounting operations automation tool mixed with a sales lead gen operations for us all to interact as a recruiting company.
Great. You were mentioning a few minutes ago something regarding the culture, and when I was preparing, the material that I get from your team, I've seen you said something interesting. You said like recruiters deserve equity. Um, Explain that to me and why this is important and how this might affect behavior.
Yeah, so it's sort of why our whole business model was was built. I think there's a trend in actually I think it's a global trend where everybody really wants to be the business owner, wants to have an asset or ownership. If you're helping to build a company, why don't you have a piece of the pie? I think there's a big trend towards and it's not everybody. Some people are very employee centric, um, but um, I think for us and the way we set up our partnership structure was that if you're helping grow the company, i.e., you're recruiting other people, you're leading a profitable P&L, that you're protected from an equity perspective in the event of a change of ownership or a sale. I think in globally, the way most corporations are set up is in the event of a sale, a very small group of partners participate in the multiple or the value creation of the entire company, and employees work for a set wage annually. That's kind of the trade-off between being an owner and an employee. But I think what we've done is we've created a very merit-based, clear incentive path where people through merit can build an equity position within our company and they're protected in the event of a sale. A lot of in our industry, a lot of these firms, they call people partners, but they have no partnership stake and they have zero protection in the event of a change of ownership. That's what we set out to change was that and it came from my belief and my own desires where look, if I'm going to build a two, three, $4 million business unit onto an owner's company, I should have some protection for having put in that sweat equity. And there just wasn't that available anywhere I saw in our industry. So that was the concept behind Frederick Fox is how do we create something where people can really feel ownership or pride, but even more so protection for sweat equity they put in over years.
That's it's kind of challenging the status quo, I would say, because I didn't see this in your industry before, Will. And as you said, like it's more about high commissions, and sometimes we see in other industries even like it's low pay, high commission, which ends up being very stressful. Although like you'd have success, I would say, but yeah, you feel that you're not building for yourself, and I think this is trigger a little bit people to feel like yeah they're part of something bigger. They feel home really when they come to work, I believe, every day. So makes a lot of sense to me. Now I
Thank
want to
you.
go back, yeah, to the entrepreneurship part of our discussion. When you look back of all the things that you have done so far, and you just kind of reflect what you see like some of the skills, personal skills, I would say, not professional skills, that mattered the most in make you successful with what you have done so far.
Great question. I think I think the biggest skill that I underestimated and that I'm constantly trying to improve on is people leadership and dealing with people. Um, I was young when I started my company, 31. I'm now 37. Um, I had a vision and a plan, but I had been in a leadership role before, but I had never really been a leader that oversaw multiple departments to include not just like I'd only been a sales leader. I never, when you start a company, you become a sales leader, a marketing leader, an accounting
Hmm.
leader, a technology leader, and you have to work cross functionally to, in effect, craft vision, hold people to objectives in a way that's, you can't have an ego. You have to be a partner with them, but you have to keep people in line towards deliverables at the end of the day. I think the style of how you deal with people, motivate people, and keep them on track towards hitting objectives, I underestimated that. If I were to redo it again, maybe I would have waited till my 40s or 50s when I had a lot more leadership experience. It would have made the path easier, but here we are. I also think, you know, I was a salesperson with an accounting degree, but like I had never actually filed an LLC. I never purchased insurance. I never really was part of writing legal contracts. So a lot of like, so I've heard people say you learn how to build a business by building a business. And that's just what you learn as you go. But so I don't know if I would do anything differently other than it would have been nice to have had a mentor advisor that had actually like could have could have helped speed up the learning curve. um, would have been great as well. With there's all these advisors out there they never really actually started a business. I think it would have been nice to have had like a tour guide that said, okay, here's how you file an LC. Here's the insurance broker to use. Don't use ADP. Use this software and then go to this software once you're at scale. I had to learn through pain all these things that if I had had like a fairy godfather, and that would be the other thing that, I would say.
I think the reality here, Will, is, you know, and I've seen this as a pattern, I would say. And I repeat to people who want to start something, and I tell them, you know, there is no Google Map, if that makes sense, for starting a business. And the reason I call it Google Map, because in my opinion, like, okay, I can read a lot of books. I can listen to podcasts like this one. I can follow great leaders. I can, of course, like this is knowledge is good. And I still do it on daily basis, right? But I mean, when you plan to start something, you are in completely different place than other people where they started. Although like maybe you have, let's say, the same degree, maybe you are financially on the same level, but the difference is, and I call it the trio. So there's the location, there's the time, and there's your personality. And I believe this is 3D dimension cannot, maybe in 1 in 10 million, I would say, like two people, they would have the same conditions to start something. So this is why what you said resonates, because you need to go out and try by yourself. Yeah, of course there are like some best practices, all of us, we can go and benefit out from them, don't get me wrong. But you gotta go and do all this. And just about this advisors or mentors or consultants who never start business, I tell people, like, listen to them, but don't let them, I would say, don't let them affect your decision. Like, don't build your decision because they tell you something. Okay, listen, maybe they say something valuable, but you need to go back and ask yourself what I am seeing, like what I tend to do, right? So it's always like kind of these conversations, which is good, especially when you're building a company. I think you ought to say something.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. I think a lot of the lessons is just you learn them through failure as you go. And then you get better. Like when it comes to the legal side, every year we find a new gap in our contract that some customer exploited. So we write the clause a little bit better this year, right, to protect the gap. And it's like it's almost like the same thing in everything in business. Is like you get into it, you're using, and then you realize, like, wait a second, I'm overpaying, or oh wait, I could do this more efficiently, and you just learn through failing. And like getting money is a great example.
Mhm.
You could go private equity who will take the majority of your business. You could find a venture funding person that will get you early enough and only take 20% and take a minority position. But like one of the things I learned with, we use factoring. I've never taken, but like there's just learning the money loop and how money passes so many hands to you and how you can actually just circumvent that to go straight to the source and pay a much lower interest rate. Like all that learning comes from failing, overpaying, and making bad decisions, to be honest.
Yeah, absolutely. It's learning from failures. That's it. Now, if you want to advise someone who's thinking about starting a professional service firm today, what you would tell them, Will?
Make sure your marriage is airtight before you start it.
Right.
Just okay. That's probably not the answer you wanted, but like it's very hard. It's very, very hard because while it has no barrier to entry, it has a huge barrier to success. And ultimately, a professional services business, you have to be really good with people, and you have to serve other people that work for you, and you have to add value to them, and you have to set up infrastructure, and you have to do that while bringing in revenue at the same time, which will in the beginning, the first 4 years, I was working 7 days a week from 5 a.m. to 11 o'clock at night. My marriage very much suffered. I also had 3 kids in the process. I have an 8, 6,
Oh,
and 2 year old. So I would tell people, just know what you're signing up for. There's a lot of glory out there to start your own company, and there's this trend towards entrepreneurship. But at the end of the day, it's very, very hard, and it has a very, very big impact on your family life. And I'm still happily married. I'll be 10 years married this March. But like all the
congrats.
glory that's out there about entrepreneurship, I would say really think about that, because you might be in a phase of life where like that you don't have the time or the grease to really do it. It really is not for everybody. And to be honest, the glory of it becomes less and less over time. I was always the guy that wanted to check the box, and then you get 5, 6 years in, and you actually want to uncheck the box, but it's a period of your ego has to go through that period of time. So I would tell people to check their ego, and is this something that they really want to do, and is their life really in a position to do it? Um, Otherwise, I think you'll fail, because it requires a huge investment.
Right. And this is normal because sometimes you need to get the punch in the face as well. This um and by the way, this is not only if you are an entrepreneur, right? Like even if you had this ego, quote unquote, on what you said, and you think like, okay, I gotta go take this role and I gotta do one, two, three, and this is my way, and then you get the punch in the face. Oh, like this is not how things are get done here. When you do the business, it's completely different story. And and this is why, when I mentioned about, I'm not against playbooks. I talk sometimes playbooks. I call like there's a playbook for GTM. I like to call them best practices or like lived experiences, because the word playbook is like you're stuck, you're like you can't move a lot. But
Right.
this, yeah, this is the reality here, Will. Which I'm glad like you're sharing also this with us, and that like I'm glad that you passed through this, and here you go today with a successful business.
And
Um,
yeah, I think I'm
as
at the where I just want the people to be happy that work for Frederick Fox. I want the partners to feel empowered. I want I want everyone to be happy. I want to have a good time doing it. And I'm trying to uncheck the box. I always said I'll never do another startup. This is it. I'm in too deep. I'm going to ride this sucker to the grave. But it's not all the glory once you've been in it for a long time. It's I don't know, count your blessings. It comes with a lot to be in this position.
right. As we are coming to an end, Will, my last question to you is where people can find out more and get in touch.
uh, www.frederickfox.com. Also, you can look me personally up on LinkedIn. But if you go onto our website, we have incredible partners, incredible veteran senior recruiters to reach. Our team is phenomenal. So feel free to reach out to anyone in our organization. We only hire the best with 7+ years of agency experience. So we have some serious professionals in our company that can support you. You can also find me personally on LinkedIn. If you message me, I will respond, even if it's 11 o'clock at night. I watch it like a hawk. So thank you, Mehmet.
Great. Thank you, Will. So, for the audience, the links will be available in the show notes. So, if you're listening on your favorite podcasting app, you will find them in the show notes. If you're watching this on YouTube, you'll find them in the description. Well, I can't thank you enough for being here with me today. It was for me, another yet great conversation because this is why I tell people I enjoy doing this because I learn down the road also as well. I get to know awesome people like yourself, Will. So thank you very much for being here with me today. And this is usually how I end my episode. This is for the audience. If you just discovered this podcast by luck or by chance, thank you for passing by. I hope you enjoyed. If you did, give me a favor, subscribe and share it with your friends and colleagues. And if you are one of the loyal people who keep coming back again and again and keep sending me their messages and feedback and keep us on the top 200 Apple Podcast chart in different countries every week since 2025. We're doing this 2025. Keep doing this. I'm really happy because I'm able to add value here. Of course, not me. It's all my guests who joined and including you, Will, today. So thank you very much for tuning in, and we will meet again very soon. Thank you. Bye bye.
Hit that subscribe button, share the show with your tech-savvy friends and fellow entrepreneurs, and leave us a review on your favorite podcast app. Your support means the world to us.